Hello, everybody. Okay. We're good. We live, we here, we good? Oh, okay. So, decided to keep doing the multi-streams. I kind of went back and looked in case you were here for Monday's stream. And I think the delays were on my end. So, it seemed to work okay last time, so we'll try it again today. See what happens. So we're doing YouTube and Twitch. Whichever one you prefer. Both. And so I got a little bit preoccupied last stream with what I thought were problems, but I guess they weren't. So I'm going to be a little bit more focused this stream, I think, and try not to worry too much about all that other stuff, especially because I think it was mostly on my end. So we here on Twitch, we back in here on YouTube, and today, since there was some recent news, I'm going to be talking about whistleblowers a little bit. Hopefully I got enough stuff here to cover the hour, and if not, then maybe we'll, I don't know, look at some memes on Twitter at the end or something. Have to see how it goes. Anyway, welcome everybody back to the stream. For those that are here for the first time, or for those that have been here many times, welcome. I appreciate y'all being here. So let's see here. Let's switch over to the browser, and so the first thing we're gonna do is kind of look at three different, we'll be talking about four different whistleblowers, because the latest one was recently just sentenced. So we'll be talking about Daniel Hale as well. But first, I guess that's not capturing my mouse. Okay, first one is Daniel Ellsberg. For those that don't know who Daniel Ellsberg was, or is, he leaked the Pentagon Papers, which exposed the Johnson administration lying in order to go to war in Vietnam. So, I mean, nothing new there. It's pretty much standard practice for the U.S. to lie ourselves into every war we've been in. But Daniel Ellsberg exposed that, and he was charged, but charges were dismissed. So we're going to be kind of covering how people that expose these crimes are the ones that are punished, and the people who commit the crimes are not, especially if they're rich and or powerful. So Daniel Ellsberg is the first one to focus on. Again, did important work releasing the Pentagon Papers. And then, of course, Edward Snowden, who worked as an NSA analyst or contractor, leaked the classified documents revealing that the federal government gathers information on private citizens. Basically all of us. NSA was spying on us illegally without a warrant. And I'm not going to scroll down because the next one is Chelsea Manning. And this article dead names and misgenders her. But yeah, she leaked papers to WikiLeaks, a whole trove of documents and videos and things exposing the war crimes that we've committed in Iraq and Afghanistan and other places as well. And so, of course, Edward Snowden had to flee the U.S. and seek asylum in Russia. And both parties are chomping at the bit to get him back and throw him in prison and throw away the key, of course. But nobody that I'm aware of was ever punished for spying on American citizens. So, and then of course Chelsea Manning has just been absolutely brutalized by our system as a result of the things that she leaked. And not really any, there might have been some low level, I think there might have been some low level people involved in torture that might have been, I don't know, discharged from the military or something, but nobody that ordered the torture that Chelsea Manning exposed was ever punished for it. And one of those war criminals talked about earlier died. What's his noodle? That war criminal that just kicked the bucket. Anyway, it'll come to me. But yeah, Bush, Obama, Trump, and all of the administration officials for those administrations, none of them have ever been held accountable for any of these crimes they've been exposed as committing. And then, of course, close that. Obama, who went after whistleblowers like nobody's business and used antiquated laws to go after journalists and whistleblowers and people that expose the corruptions and war crimes of the U.S. government. So this article says, as President Barack Obama soared into office 8 years ago, which is now, I guess this is 2017, so it's been more than 8 years, obviously. What, 12 years ago? On his first day in the White House, he promised on his first day in the White House to launch a new era of open government. The government should not keep information confidential merely because public officials might be embarrassed by disclosure, because errors and failures might be revealed, or because of speculative or abstract fears, Obama said in January 21st, 2009 memorandum. Obviously, that was just all bullshit. I think Obama prosecuted more people under the Espionage Act than all previous administrations combined. So yeah, that did not work out well in his favor at all. And I was on Twitter earlier and saw somebody say something about Obama's biggest scandal. Of course, liberals think his biggest scandal was the tan suit, when it was not that at all. But it also wasn't the right wing's stupid arguments against Obama about being Muslim and Kenyan and all that bullshit too. So liberals and conservatives were both fucking stupid when it came to Obama and their critiques of him. Obama was urging the Attorney General to issue new guidelines protecting the Freedom of Information Act. In the face of doubt, Obama proclaimed openness prevails. Notably, Obama's transparency pledge came on the heels of President George W. Bush's administration, which kept state-sponsored torture of alleged enemy combatants, a nascent drone assassination program, and covert eavesdropping on American citizens hidden from the eyes of the American public. Aside from an economy teetering on the edge of collapse, Obama was inheriting 2 bloody and expensive wars, a bloated national security state that emerged from the War on Terror, and several controversial policies championed by his Republican predecessor. Okay, I want to talk about that paragraph because, good God, Obama took all of that and expanded everything. The economy teetering on the edge of collapse. What did Obama do with that? Well, he bailed out the people that crashed the economy and then allowed them to kick people out of their homes anyway. Obama inherited 2 bloody and expensive wars and expanded it to 7. Bloated national security state that emerged from War on Terror, expanded that. And several controversial policies championed by his Republican predecessor. So he took all of those controversial policies from Bush and expanded all of them. Or most all of them. Now it was the former... so it might get into it now. They might say what I just said, only more in a better way. Now it was the former constitutional law professor's turn to respond. As our country takes stock of Obama's tenure as commander-in-chief, the press determined it appropriate to scrutinize his record on press freedoms and his ongoing and unprecedented federal crackdown of whistleblowers. The press did not scrutinize Obama's attacking of whistleblowers or the press. What the fuck are they talking about? Yeah, that's not true at all. No, they covered up for him and allowed him to do it. And even encouraged him to go after people. Wow. Okay, that's... I don't remember reading that part in this article, but... Okay, we'll have to see how this rest of this article goes, because that statement right there is just, wow. Boggles my mind. While countless Americans may judge Obama's performance based on their own current economic standing or their ability to find affordable health insurance, some have grown so dissatisfied with the outgoing president's handling of transparency that they think his legacy has been tarnished. Reviewing the two-term Democrats' record on the issue is especially relevant now. Wow, given President-elect Donald Trump's hostile attacks on journalism. Again, Donald Trump just said journalists suck. Obama actually prosecuted him. What the fuck is this article? Okay. I ain't gonna finish this article. This is just an Obama love piece. Where they pretend that he wasn't a complete shit stain. Okay. As for Obama's record. Okay, right here. As for Obama's record, here's what history will show. In his 8 years in office, the Obama Justice Department spearheaded 8 Espionage Act prosecutions, more than all U.S. administrations combined. Journalists were also caught in the crosshairs. Investigators sought phone records for Associated Press journalists, threatened to jail an investigative reporter for the New York Times, and named a Fox News reporter a co-conspirator in a leak case. In Texas, a journalist investigating private defense contractors became the focus of a federal prosecution and was initially charged for sharing a hyperlink containing hacked information that had already been made public. Those Espionage Act cases included the trial of Chelsea Manning, who was held in solitary confinement for nearly 1 year prior to her military trial, prompting a condemnation from the UN special, whatever the fuck that word is, on torture. The absolute twisted passion with which the administration under Obama's leadership has pursued whistleblowers is just appalling, says Norman Solomon, executive director of the Institute for Public Accuracy and co-founder of RootsAction.org. And as far as I can tell, the administration is unrepentant in the process. There's just no other administration that comes close. See, this is weird because up here they were going off about how awesome Trump was with the media and whistleblowers. How awful Trump was. And then you come down here and they tell the truth. It's weird. This is just a weird article. I must have read it wrong the first time, but anyway. Journalists' concerns about their threatened rights became such a hot-button issue that Obama's first U.S. Attorney General, Eric Holder, had to publicly affirm that they would be spared from the confines of a metal cell under his watch. As long as I'm Attorney General, no reporter who is doing his job is going to go to jail, Holder said. Blah, blah, blah. See, this article is just weird. The frequency of espionage Act cases under Obama has earned him the reputation of waging war on whistleblowers. New York Times reporter James Risen has called Obama the greatest enemy to press freedom in a generation. Damning words indeed. In 2015, the United States was about to drop out of the top 50 countries and the Reporter Without Borders annual Press Freedom Index, sliding 29 spots since 2009 when Obama took office. And the International Watchdog Organization's report, WRB, cited the ongoing conflict with whistleblowers for the decline. The United States regained 8 spots in 2016. The home of the Bill of Rights finds itself in the same company as 2 African nations, Burkina Faso and Botswana, and Slovenia, where RWB notes anyone who feels offended or insulted by a newspaper article can demand the publication of a correction in the same position in the newspaper. As RWB explained, U.S. media freedom enshrined in the First Amendment to the 1787 Constitution has encountered a major obstacle: the government's war on whistleblowers who leak information about its surveillance activities, spying, and foreign operations, especially those linked to counterterrorism. The Obama administration has deployed the Espionage Act against whistleblowers with such devastating effect that it punishes leakers who believe they're acting in the public good and creates a chilling effect from national security agencies on down, a show of force that may make potential whistleblowers to think twice about disclosing information, according to rights groups and whistleblowers advocates. Yeah, so again, he used the antiquated Espionage Act to go after whistleblowers and people who expose the crimes and corruption. Without consequence to the people whose crimes and corruption was exposed by the leaks. The Obama administration has presided over the most draconian crackdown on national security and intelligence community whistleblowers in U.S. history, said Jesselyn Raddick, a whistleblower herself and a national security attorney, at an event last February in Washington, D.C., to support the imprisoned whistleblower Jeffrey Sterling, a lawyer and former CIA employee. The Justice Department has used the antiquated Espionage Act as a bludgeon to threaten, intimidate, silence, and imprison whistleblowers for allegedly mishandling classified information. Timothy Carr, Senior Director of Strategy for Free Press, said, One would have to go back 7 presidential administrations to find someone as prodigious in cracking down on whistleblowers as Obama. The Obama administration is like the Nixon administration in many respects, he said, at the same event. The Nixon administration tried to silence whistleblowers using illegal means. The Obama administration is trying to silence whistleblowers using a misinterpretation of the laws that are on the books, and they have done it to greater impact than Nixon could ever imagine. Even customary access the White House correspondents had enjoyed for decades has been disrupted, according to a scathing 2013 Committee to Protect Journalists report. In the past, we would often be called into the Roosevelt Room at the beginning of meetings to hear the president's opening remarks and see who's in the meeting, and then we could talk to some of them outside of the driveway afterward. ABC News White House correspondent Ann Compton, who's covered every president since Gerald Ford, told the reporter's authors, "This president has wiped all the coverage off the map. He's the least transparent of the 7 presidents I've covered in terms of how he does his daily business." Those authors were unequivocal in their condemnation. U.S. President Barack Obama came into office pledging open government, they wrote, but he's fallen short on his promise. Yet while the future of press freedom rights in the era of Trump have taken center stage, Obama's own record has been spared equal scrutiny. Yeah, see? So why didn't they say that before? Before they were like, Trump is the great threat to media freedom, to press freedom. I don't know. This article is really weird. Like they're both sidesing it or something. I don't know. It's weird. Solomon, who is also a journalist, has witnessed the overwhelming force the Obama DOJ has deployed in prosecuting whistleblowers. In his case, he was one of the few reporters embedded in the Alexandria, Virginia courtroom during Sterling's trial. If people are informed, they understand the Obama administration is guilty of really eroding seriously vital constitutional protections, including the First, Fourth, and Fifth Amendment. Solomon tells the press over the phone from California, "I really can't think of a president who's done more damage to civil liberties than President Obama." He's hardly alone in drawing that conclusion. What's down here? I don't remember seeing this. Okay, that's just talking about one of the whistleblowers that he prosecuted. Okay, we'll talk about Edward Snowden. Oh, what is this? What's Snowden? That's weird. What Snowden disclosed and how he endeavored to provide select journalists access to secret NSA documents is well known. Hang on, let me capture cursor. Oops. Okay, there we go. All right, we'll start over from here. Capturing cursor now. I don't know why I didn't have that on. So you can follow along easier. Okay, what? That should be what. The W. Snowden disclosed and how he endeavored to provide select journalists access to secret NSA documents is well known. His detractors continue to spread a false narrative that Snowden willfully escaped to Russia and somehow passed off intelligence to America's Cold War foe. An executive summary published by the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence in September 2016 twice falsely claimed that Snowden fled to Russia after leaving Hong Kong. Snowden was traveling through Russia en route to Latin America when the U.S. government revoked his passport, effectively cutting off Snowden from the rest of the world. Which is true, he was not going to Russia. They were on his tail in Hong Kong, and so he got on a plane and was promised asylum in it might say. Some South American country. It might have been Ecuador or something. Anyway, he was promised asylum in South America, but on his way to Russia to get to South America, after he fled Hong Kong, the U.S. revoked his passport, and so he couldn't continue flying and had to seek asylum in Russia. So again, it's not liberals and conservatives both hold that lie about Edward Snowden and being some Russian asset bullshit, you know, that whole Russiagate nonsense that they were all in on. The same report claims, without evidence, that Snowden provided intelligence he took from the NSA to the Russian government, an allegation that the American whistleblower forcefully denies. Snowden has insisted that he gave all the documents in his possession to journalists because he was unqualified to decide which belonged in the public sphere. The government report is also critical of Snowden for his failure to go through proper channels to air complaints. But he did, but fails to mention that whistleblower protection laws do not protect national security contractors like Snowden from retribution, unlike federal employees. Oh, so he didn't, because he was a contractor, not a federal employee. I thought I saw somewhere that he did try and go through official channels. So I don't know. This article is weird, so it could be right, it could be wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. On March 7th, 2014, Snowden testified in front of the European Parliament. He had reported problematic programs to more than 10 American officials. Yeah, none of whom took any action to address them. Okay, so see, this article is really weird. It contradicts itself. Because here it says he didn't tell anybody, or he didn't go through the proper chain of command because the laws didn't protect him, but then down here it says that he tried. Yeah, this article is really weird. I apologize. I should have found a better article. This article is kind of weird. Okay. As an employee of a private company rather than a direct employee of the U.S. government, he said, I was not protected by the U.S. whistleblower laws, and I would not have been protected from retaliation and legal sanction for revealing classified information. In 2012, President Obama used an executive action to improve whistleblower protections in certain cases, which was called Presidential Policy Directive 19. Advocates acknowledged that the directive did bolster protections for whistleblowers, but contractors, which the Washington Post several years ago estimated to make up nearly 30% of the intelligence workforce, were excluded. That same year, a pilot program protecting national security contractors' rights to blow the whistle also ended. The result, Snowden told the EU panel, was that individuals like me were left with no proper channels. In a letter dated June 9th, 2015, a consortium of rights groups told U.S. Senate leaders that protections for contractors that were in place for 5 years had been successful in deterring taxpayer waste and contractor abuse. The federal government does not have one set of unified whistleblower protections. Instead, they are a patchwork of protections. Elizabeth Hempowicz, Policy Council of the Project on Government Oversight, tells the press, which I guess is the Long Island Press, which is where this article is from. Which somebody needs to rewrite this article because it's not very good. Probably every federal agency you can at least go to your IG, Inspector General, and she says, and most agencies have a chain of command that you can go through to report whistleblowing complaints through, but that's slightly different than the protections that they have. Having an umbrella law covering whistleblowers is the ultimate goal of her project. Hempelwitz is not optimistic. I don't think this will ever happen, she says. Even now, there are big disparities in the different kinds of protections that whistleblowers get depending on where they are. Whistleblowers who have come under government scrutiny complain of a double standard. Government-approved leaks, information given to journalists that is not embarrassing, but instead paints an agency positively, are commonplace in Washington, D.C., and don't often lead to prosecution. If prosecutors do decide to act, the treatment of the whistleblowers is favorable. Okay, I think that's the end of Edward Snowden's part in that. Blah, 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 blah. You know what? This article just goes on to say Trump bad. Okay, so now we're going to talk about this latest whistleblower case that's I'd say been in the news, but the news hasn't covered it. So, and that's the case of Daniel Hale. If you don't know who that is, he was in the Air Force and was a drone operator. And he leaked the drone papers to The Intercept, which we'll talk about in just a minute. But he was recently sentenced for leaking basically that our drone program was just murdering people indiscriminately. So yeah, hang on, let's kill the music so we can hear what Amy Goodman has to say. This was, I don't know, a week ago. So he's been sentenced. This segment is before he was sentenced, but he has been sentenced now, which we'll talk about in the next tab. Anyway, we'll watch this. Oh, it's 18-minute video? Ooh. We'll watch some of this video. I don't know if we'll watch all of it, but it kind of talks about Daniel Hale and what he did and why he was
Now, I'm Amy Goodman.
Why he was prosecuted.
The Biden administration's urging a federal court to sentence drone whistleblower Daniel Hale to at least 9 years in prison for leaking classified information about the U.S. drone and target assassination program. Hale was enlisted in the U.S. Air Force from 2009 to 2013, during which time he worked with the National Security Agency and JSOC, the Joint Special Operations Task Force at Bagram Air Base in Afghanistan, where he helped identify targets for assassination. He later worked as a contractor for the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. In March, Daniel Hale pleaded guilty to one count of violating the World War I-era Espionage Act for leaking documents exposing the drone program. He'll be sentenced Tuesday. In a handwritten letter to Judge Liam O'Grady, Hale describes feeling immense guilt for his role in the U.S. assassination program. He wrote, quote, "Not a day goes by that I don't question the justification for my actions." Hale went on to write, "To say that the period of my life spent serving in the United States Air Force had an impression on me would be an understatement. It's more accurate to say that it irreversibly transformed my identity as an American." Daniel Hale's lawyers are seeking a 12 to 18-month sentence. In a court filing, his lawyers state, quote, "The facts regarding Mr. Hale's motive are clear. He committed the offense to bring attention to what he believed to be immoral government conduct committed under the cloak of secrecy and contrary to public statements of then-President Obama regarding the alleged precision of the United States military's drone program." Famed NSA whistleblower Edward Snowden has voiced his support for Daniel Hale. I spoke to Ed Snowden in May.
Daniel Hale is one of the most consequential whistleblowers who sacrificed everything, an incredibly courageous person, to tell us that the drone war that, is so obviously occurring to everyone else, but the government was still officially denying in so many ways, is here, it is happening, and 90% of the casualties in one 5-month period were innocents or bystanders or not the target of the drone strike. We could not establish that. We could not prove that without Daniel Hale's voice.
In a moment, we'll be joined by one of Daniel Hale's close friends, as well as one of his lawyers. But first, we turn to Daniel Hale, in his own words, speaking in the documentary National Bird, a film by Sonia Kennebec.
The people who defend drones and defend the way that they're used, they always say, you know, they protect American lives by not putting them in harm's way. But what they really do is they just embolden commanders. They embolden decision makers because there is no threat. There is no immediate consequence. They can do this strike and they can potentially kill this person that they're so desperate to get and to eliminate because of how dangerous, potentially dangerous they could be to the U.S. But if it just so happens that they don't kill that person or that some other people are involved in the strike and get killed as well, you know, there's no consequence for it. When it comes to high-value targeting, every mission is to go after one person at a time. But anybody else that's killed in that strike is just blanketly assumed to be an associate of the targeted individual. So as long as they can reasonably identify that all of the people in the field of view of the camera are military-aged males, meaning anybody who's believed to be of age 16 or older, they are a legitimate target under the rules of engagement. If that strike occurs and kills all of them, they just say that they got them all.
That's Daniel Hale speaking in the documentary National Bird, a film by Sonia Kennebec. We're joined now in Washington, D.C. by two guests. Jessalyn Radack is an attorney for Daniel Hale, directs the Whistleblower and Source Protection Program at Expose Facts. And Noor Mir is with us. She's a close friend of Daniel Hale. She's part of the Daniel Hale support team. She first met Hale in 2013 when doing anti-drone advocacy with Code Pink. Jessalyn Radack, let's begin with you. Tuesday is the day of sentencing. Talk about what Daniel Hale has confessed to and what the defense, what you're asking for and what you expect him to receive.
Daniel has pled guilty to one count under the Espionage Act for an unauthorized disclosure to the media. So he is facing a sentence range that's between 1 to 10 years for that infraction. However, part of his guilty plea, unlike the usual situation where you plead guilty for a certain amount of time that is definite, here the time has not been determined. So at the sentencing, a lot of different groups, Daniel himself, his supporters, people in civil liberties community and target groups of drone strikes and whistleblower groups, media groups are all arguing that he should be shown mercy because he was tried under a very draconian law to which he could not raise a defense.
So can you give us the chronology of what took place? I mean, The Intercept published the drone papers in 2015. Daniel Hale released this information, the documents that he got, to a journalist. Explain Daniel's rationale further than this extremely significant handwritten note he gave to the judge last week.
Daniel's rationale was that not only was information about drone strikes being denied, but it was also being lied about by people in power. The U.S. was consistently understating the amount of innocent civilians who were targeted and using overbroad targeting lists. So Daniel ended up going to the press, but his case has spanned a long time period. His house was searched in 2014, but he wasn't indicted until 2019. And here we are in 2021 for his sentencing. So this has been an odyssey that has occupied most of the better part of his adult life for basically committing the truth. The U.S. has never contested any of Daniel's disclosures. And when asked to do a statement about what kind of harm Daniel caused, it did not do a damage assessment and did not submit any kind of statement about harm because there wasn't any.
Normir, you're a close friend of
Okay. I left my mic muted. Hello? Hello? Lord, did I freeze up again? I can't tell. I think my... I can't tell if I froze up or not. Yeah, but my... I don't know if there's sound or not. If you're hearing me, I guess we'll just carry on. Hopefully there's still sound, huh? Yeah? Let's see. Hello, 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 hello. Still sound there, so... Okay, hopefully my audio's working. Looks like my OBS... Oh, there we go. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. But we'll keep going. Okay. Gotta focus on... So, Daniel Hale was sentenced to 45 months in prison for drone leak. Daniel Hale, a former U.S. Air Force intelligence analyst, was sentenced to 45 months in prison Tuesday after pleading guilty to leaking a trove of government documents exposing the inner workings and severe civilian costs of the U.S. military's drone program. Appearing in an Alexandria, Virginia courtroom, the 33-year-old Hale told U.S. Judge Liam Mulgrady that he believed it was necessary to dispel the lie that drone warfare keeps us safe, that our lives are worth more than theirs. Does this give his letter? I kind of want to just read his letter. So his letter was kind of important. Let's see here. this one? Let's try this article. I wanted to do The Intercept because that's who he leaked the drone papers to. Oh, okay. Here's the letter. Let's see. We can get rid of that one. This the full letter. It looks like the full letter. Okay. Let's go over some of this letter here that he wrote to the judge. Oh, guess we can stick that back on. Okay, Daniel Hale, former Air Force intelligence analyst who pleaded guilty to sharing classified documents about U.S. military drone programs with a reporter, was just sentenced to 45 months in federal prison. Ahead of his sentencing, Hale's lawyer submitted an 11-page letter, handwritten by Daniel from his jail cell to U.S. District Judge Liam O'Grady. Hale's deeply personal letter paints a gruesome picture of the U.S. drone program and explains in detail how it was a crisis of conscience that led Hale to leak secrets about the program to a reporter. Below is Daniel's letter. Don't know if I'll read the full thing. It's on an 11-page letter, but we'll get into it. Dear Judge O'Grady, it is not a secret that I struggle to live with depression and post-traumatic stress disorder. Both stem from my childhood experience growing up in a rural mountain community and were compounded by exposure to combat during military service. Depression is a constant, though stress, particularly stress caused by war, can manifest itself at different times and in different ways. Telltale signs of a person afflicted by PTSD and depression can often be outwardly observed and are practically universally recognizable. Hard lines about the face and jaw, eyes once bright and wide, now deep set and fearful, and an inexplicably sudden loss of interest in things that used to spark joy. These are the noticeable changes in my demeanor, marked by those who knew me before and after military service. To say that that period of my life spent serving in the United States Air Force had an impression on me would be an understatement. It is more accurate to say that it irreversibly transformed my identity as an American, having forever altered the thread of my life's story, weaved into the fabric of our nation's history. To better appreciate the significance of how this came to pass, I would like to explain my experience deployed to Afghanistan as it was in 2012 and how it is I came to violate the Espionage Act as a result. In my capacity, I gotta learn to read. In my capacity as a signals intelligence analyst stationed at Bagram Air Base, I was made to track down the geographic locations of handset cell phone devices believed to be in the possession of so-called enemy combatants. To accomplish this mission required access to a complex chain of globe-spanning satellites capable of maintaining an unbroken connection with remotely piloted aircraft, commonly referred to as drones. Once a steady connection is made and a targeted cell phone device is acquired, an imagery analyst in the U.S., in coordination with the drone pilot and camera operator, would take over using information I provided to surveil everything that occurred within the drone's field of vision. This was done most often to document the day-to-day lives of suspected militants. Sometimes under the right conditions, an attempt at capture would be made. Other times a decision to strike and kill them where they stood would be weighed. The first time that I witnessed a drone strike came within days of my arrival to Afghanistan. Early that morning before dawn, a group of men had gathered together in the mountain ranges of Patika province around a campfire carrying weapons and brewing tea. That they carried weapons with them would not have been considered out of the ordinary in the place that I grew up, much less within the virtually lawless tribal territories outside the control of the Afghan authorities. Except that among them was a suspected member of the Taliban, given away by the targeted cell phone device in his pocket. As for the remaining individuals, to be armed, of military age, and sitting in the presence of an alleged enemy combatant was enough evidence to place them under suspicion as well. Despite having peacefully assembled, posing no threat, the fate of the now tea-drinking men had all but been fulfilled. I could only look on as I sat by and watched through a computer monitor when a sudden terrifying flurry of hellfire missiles came crashing down, splattering purple-colored crystal guts on the side of the morning mountain. Since that time and to this day, I continue to recall several such scenes of graphic violence carried out from the cool comfort of a computer chair. Not a day goes by that I don't question the justification for my actions. By the rules of engagement, it may have been permissible for me to have helped to kill those men, whose language I did not speak, customs I did not understand, and crimes I could not identify, in the gruesome manner that I did. Watch them die. But how could it be considered honorable of me to continuously have laid in wait for the next opportunity to kill unsuspecting persons who, more often than not, are posing no danger to me or any other person at the time? Never mind honorable, how could it be that any thinking person continued to believe that it was necessary for the protection of the United States of America to be in Afghanistan and killing people, not one of whom present was responsible for the September 11th attacks on our nation, notwithstanding in 2012, a full year after the demise of Osama bin Laden in Pakistan, I was a part of killing misguided young men who were but mere children the day of 9/11. Nevertheless, in spite of my better instincts, I continued to follow orders and obey my command for fear of repercussion. Yet all the while, becoming increasingly aware that the war had very little to do with preventing terror from coming into the United States, and a lot more to do with protecting the profits of weapons manufacturers and so-called defense contractors. The evidence of this fact was laid bare all around me. In the longest or most technologically advanced war in American history, contract mercenaries outnumbered uniform-wearing soldiers 2-1 and earned as much as 10 times their salary. Meanwhile, it did not matter whether it was, as I had seen, an Afghan farmer blown in half, yet miraculously conscious and pointlessly trying to scoop his insides off the ground, or whether it was the American flag-draped coffin lowered into Arlington National Cemetery to the sound of a 21-gun salute. Both serve to justify the easy flow of capital at the cost of blood, theirs and ours. When I think about this, I am grief-stricken and ashamed of myself for the things I've done to support it. The most harrowing day of my life came months into my deployment to Afghanistan, when a routine surveillance mission turned into disaster. For weeks we had been tracking the movements of a ring of car bomb manufacturers living around Jalalabad. Car bombs directed at U.S. bases had become an increasingly frequent and deadly problem that summer. So much effort was put into stopping them. It was a windy and clouded afternoon when one of the suspects had been discovered headed eastbound, driving at a high rate of speed. This alarmed my superiors, who believed he might be attempting to escape across the border into Pakistan. A drone strike was our only chance, and already it began lining up to take the shot. But the less advanced Predator drone found it difficult to see through clouds and compete against the strong headwinds. The single payload MQ-1 failed to connect with its target, instead missing by a few meters. The vehicle, damaged but still drivable, continued on ahead after narrowly avoiding destruction. Eventually, once the concern of another incoming missile subsided, the driver stopped, got out of the car, and checked himself as though he could not believe he was still alive. Out of the passenger side came a woman wearing an unmistakable burqa. As astounding as it was to have just learned that there had been a woman, possibly his wife, there with the man we intended to kill moments ago. I did not have the chance to see what happened next before the drone diverted its camera, when she began frantically to pull out something from the back of the car. A couple of days passed before I finally learned from a briefing by my commanding officer about what took place. There indeed had been the suspect's wife with him in the car, and in the back, were their 2 young daughters, aged 5 and 3 years old. A cadre of Afghan soldiers were sent to investigate where the car had stopped the following day. It was there they found them placed in the dumpster nearby. The eldest was found dead due to unspecified wounds caused by shrapnel that pierced her body. Her younger sister was alive but severely dehydrated. As my commanding officer relayed this information to us, she seemed to express disgust. Not for the fact that we had apparently fired on a man and his family, having killed one of his daughters, but for the suspected bomb maker having ordered his wife to dump the bodies of their daughters in the trash, so that the 2 of them could more quickly escape across the border. Now, whenever I encounter an individual who thinks that drone warfare is justified and reliably keeps America safe, I remember that time and ask myself, how could I possibly continue to believe that I am a good person deserving of my life and the right to pursue happiness? Let's see here. Okay, goes on to talk about his anti-war activism after coming home. About a week after the peace conference, I received a lucrative job offer to work as a contractor. Took the job. Okay, Your Honor, the truest truism that I've come to understand about the nature of war is that war is trauma. I believe that any person either called upon or coerced to participate in war against their fellow man is promised to be exposed to some form of trauma. In that way, no soldier blessed to have returned home from war does so uninjured. The crux of PTSD is that it is a moral conundrum that afflicts invisible wounds on the psyche of a person made to burden the weight of experience after surviving a traumatic event. How PTSD manifests depends on the circumstances of the event. So how is the drone operator to process this? The victorious rifleman, unquestioningly remorseful, at least keeps his honor intact by having faced off against his enemy on the battlefield. The determined fighter pilot has the luxury of not having to witness the gruesome aftermath. But what possibly could I have done to cope with the undeniable cruelties that I had perpetuated? My conscience, once held at bay, came roaring back to life. At first, I tried to ignore it, wishing instead that someone better placed than I should come along to take this cup from me. But this too was folly. Left to decide whether to act, I only could do that which I ought to do before God and my own conscience. The answer came to me, that to stop the cycle of violence, I had to sacrifice my own life, and not that of another person. So I contacted an investigative reporter with whom I had an established prior relationship, and told him that I had something the American people needed to know. Respectfully, Daniel Hale. So that was the letter. It's posted on the Sparrow Project, sparrowmedia.net. If you want to read the full thing, that's where it's at. And then the drone papers, about time to end. I'm not going to go over all of them, but on The Intercept, on their site, if you just Google the drone papers, you can find it on The Intercept. And it breaks them down into different categories. So again, it's on October 15th, 2015, The Intercept published a cache of secret documents detailing the inner workings of the U.S. military's assassination program in Afghanistan, Yemen, and Somalia. So this talks about The assassination complex talks about the whistleblower who leaked the drone, the whistleblower who leaked the drone papers believes the public is entitled to know how people are placed on the kill list. The visual glossary is decoding the language of the warfare kill chain. New details about the secret criteria for drone strikes and how the White House approves targets. Find, fix, finish, the tip of the spear in the Obama administration's ramped up wars in Somalia and Yemen. Manhunting in the Hindu Kush. Leaked documents telling a multi-year U.S. military campaign in Afghanistan reveal strategic limits and startling human costs of drone warfare. Firing blind, a secret Pentagon study highlights the chronic flaws in intelligence used for drone strikes in Yemen and Somalia. Life and death objective of Peckham. For years, Bilal el-Berjawi traveled freely from UK to Somalia under the watchful eyes of intelligence services. Then the US killed him with a drone strike. Target Africa. To reduce the tyranny of distance, drones fly from bases in Djibouti, Ethiopia, Kenya, and Navy ships. I think under visual glossary, I just want to look at this one stat. Okay, so the objective is the target that they're trying to kill. Jackpot is when the drone operators hit the target, killing the person they intend to kill. When they miss their target or end up killing someone else, they label that person EKIA, enemy killed in action. Okay, this right here. So over a 5-month period, US forces used drones and other aircraft to kill 155 people in northeastern Afghanistan. They achieved 19 jackpots. Along the way, they killed at least 136 other people, all of whom were classified EKIA or enemies killed in action. Note that the percentage column, it's the number of jackpots divided by the number of operations. A 70% success rate, but it ignores well over 100 other people killed along the way. This means that 9 out of 10 people killed in these strikes were not the intended targets. So innocent, 90% innocent people killed in Obama's drone strike programs. That was the stat I was looking for. Anyway, you can find this article again if you just Google the drone papers and go over all of these papers that Daniel Hale released through The Intercept. Okay. And just lastly, before I go, talking about these whistleblowers and the fact that these whistleblowers are being prosecuted for sharing information that I believe is important for the American public to have and to know. And the fact that the people who were the criminals committing these acts that were exposed by these leaks, none of them have ever been prosecuted or held accountable in any way. And if that doesn't change, then these whistleblowers will, Obama with his prosecutions of whistleblowers probably prevented a lot of other important information that would have been useful for the American public to know from leaking, because I'm sure there were some people who decided that having to sacrifice their lives like that, the ways these whistleblowers have, wasn't worth it. And that's a shame. I think there's a lot of things that the American people has the right to know, and whistleblowers are our best, I think, way for that information to come forward. And so long as, again, Obama especially went after whistleblowers, but Trump did as well, and as best as I can tell, Biden is continuing the tradition of making sure that it's not the criminals that are exposed that we go after, it's the people that expose the crimes and the criminals. And I think it's important that we recognize these whistleblowers as the heroes that they are for exposing these things, and hopefully work into a society where, I mean, ideally we would have a society where you wouldn't need whistleblowers, where we were just doing the right thing because it was the right thing to do, obviously. But the next best thing would be, as whistleblowers come forward, to protect the whistleblowers and go after the people whose crimes they expose. And that's sort of the message of this stream. Today and always. Again, that's my thoughts on it. And there are many other whistleblowers that we didn't mention in this stream that were also prosecuted into silence. And again, I think as long as old, outdated, antiquated laws are used inappropriately to go after whistleblowers and to go after the press, I wish the press was more on this, because it is infringing on their freedoms of the press, because they'll prosecute them as well. So you would think the press would be all over it, but they're in bed with the corruption that's being exposed. So free and independent and small press, I think, is important, because corporate media, the same people that own corporate media are the same people that own our government, and so obviously they're not going to want to expose themselves. So it's important to acknowledge people like Daniel Hale, people like Chelsea Manning, people like Edward Snowden, people like Daniel Ellsberg, many others who have come forward to expose things that we're doing wrong, so that we know about them and so that we can do better. And that's the hope. So if you are in a capacity where you have information that the American public should know, I would hope you would come forward with that information to an outlet that you know you could trust. And let's bring all this to light, expose all this corruption, so that we can be better. It's kind of fucked up that we're just slaughtering people with drones like this, and the only person who's being held accountable for it is the person who told us about it, and not the people who ordered it. and not the people that ramped it up. Those are the true criminals. So, anyhow, thank you so much for joining me today on this stream. Hopefully, again, it looks like I'm frozen, so. But then I look over and things seem to be working okay. So, hopefully everything worked and looked good and everything on your end. So, we will continue the multi-streaming on Friday. And I might be changing times. But for right now, Fridays will also be at 7 Eastern. And again, we'll just, I don't know if I'll do a single topic like we did today, or if we'll just talk about different topics. But I thought this was an important topic to cover today, and so that's why we sort of focused on the one topic instead of a multitude of different topics. So Friday will be the next stream, 7 Eastern, 7 p.m. Eastern. Thank you again for joining me. Have an amazing Wednesday. We'll see you all on Friday.